There's a good chance a couple of small tweaks to some of these sort of accessory or sensory movements that you're doing for yourself or your clients can have a world of difference in the impact for skill expression and strength expression in the gym. In this video, I'm talking about a small tweak that you can make to a band pull apart to improve your upper back tension and your position in the bench press with a subtle fix that is simply just a supinated variation, which allows you to stack and pack your shoulder blades better. If you're interested in this type of content, this video is actually from my coach education portal, which is called the Wormhole. It's an exclusive community of coaches and professionals all looking to develop their understanding of strength training, movement, programming, even a little bit of business. There's a 2-day free trial down below if you want to check that out. I'd highly recommend jumping in if you're keen on learning and progressing your understanding. We have live calls every Wednesday that you can jump in, ask questions, and develop your understanding of coaching, movement, strength, programming, all of it. We're going to chat a little bit about the upper back tension requirements and some probably better ways that you can coach and cue your clients to feel what we're looking for, specifically for the bench press. So we know with the bench press, there's a couple of key things that we want from a technical expression, and maintaining as much tightness through the trunk and the upper back is kind of a requirement for high-level bench pressing and really pushing bench as a strength outcome. So it's going to always be part of the things that we're cueing and coaching and trying to improve with our clients. So we're going to go through a couple of very simple strategies that I use with clients that have very quick sort of learning processes to express what we actually want. So most people, if James spins around for us, most people think that it's simply just a retraction, which definitely can help pretty much everyone, the understanding that you've got to pull your shoulder blades back in space. However, if we simply have a retraction, and if we think about the rhomboid muscle, the rhomboid muscle has sort of like these oblique fibers that run like this, and at end range of retraction, if we retract both arms as far as we can, what we can actually start to see is that the shoulder blades start to tilt on top of the rib cage, and they go into an anterior tilt, especially if we layer that with a big extension moment of the arm. And this is where we're starting to see the scapula roll forward, and it's quite often something that we're trying to minimize with clients. And a lot of people in the industry will say that that's like a form breakdown, or it's going to load the anterior shoulder too much, and it's stability of the upper back or any of those sort of things, where it's really not. It's simply just that when we retract as hard as we can and the rhomboids with their fiber line shorten as aggressively as they can and layer that with an extension of the arm, the scap just rolls on top of the rib cage to deliver the arm backwards in space. So it's not so much a form breakdown as it is just simply the expression of that coordination of movement. And a lot of the times when we think of upper back tension and minimizing this anterior tilt, what we're actually looking for is a posterior tilt of the shoulder blade. And this all lives within our low trap. So if we think about our trap muscle inserting along the whole sort of length of the thoracic spine here, down towards pretty much T12 is where the low trap is. So it's all the way down here is kind of what we're looking to feel. And if we can get this part of the mid back to be active and tensioned, we're actually going to hold a posterior tilt in that setup position, which is what we're looking for with a really good bench press. So it's more than just retracting, it's more than just going back and down in depression. What we actually want is a posterior tilt. And if we get the posterior tilt well and it can hold it and contextualize it for clients, it probably will mean that we'll never roll a shoulder forward because we're actually using the lower trap for what it's designed to do, which is posterior tilt. So we're going to go through my favorite exercise to teach this, which is simply just a supinated band pull apart. So it's an underhand grip. And the reason that we use an underhand grip is because we're kind of like tricking the brain into driving external rotation through the distal extremity. And we know that when we drive an ER distal, it's going to form a posterior tilt of the proximal structure. So it's going to be the same at a hip. If we really want to get the posterior tilt to come into the pelvis, we want to externally rotate the extremity in some capacity. That's where we have like heel pressures and lateral heel pressures. If you think of all of your standard shortened glute training cues, that's why those things work, because that ER of the distal turns into a posterior tilt at the pelvis. It's exactly the same here in the upper body. So if we're thinking of a posterior tilt of the scapula coming in with low trap, if we cue a little bit of an ER through the arm, we're going to get way better purchase of that low trap. So if you just do a couple of reps for us, and what I would actually get you to do and get your clients is to hold this position. I sometimes use a bench, or a wall to feel it, if you spin around for me. And just hold that shape and get your clients to slide their scapulas around. So literally elevate up, pull them back down, maybe cue a little bit more of that feeling. And eventually, if you grab on, you've got it now, you will send so much tension to this area of their mid-back. It's not funny. You can't get away from it. When you cue the distal arm properly with that ER and get the scaps to come down into position, you're going to light that mid-low trap area up. So that would be one of the easiest places to start with them, is simply just holding the band and playing around, and I just call it exploration. You're just exploring the different scapular positions and eventually finding that context of what we're looking for. You can make it a little bit more specific by going down into the bench. We'll still use the band. By going down into the bench and just doing it in the setup. This is something that I would recommend doing as well. So now we're looking for a high chest. And again, they could just explore that feeling of different scap positions. And if we've done good with our context in the standing stuff against the wall or just standing, you'll eventually find it. Once they have that feeling, I'd recommend getting them to actually do some reps and see if they can maintain the tension there. So even as we're going through and starting to move away from that position, they're still holding that low trap tension, that it's kind of like mid-low back tension. Once they've got that, I simply just get them to unrack the bar and see if they can find it with the barbell up in space. And again, they'll just play around with their scapulas and eventually they'll probably pick up the tension that we're looking for. And then once they've got it, we actually can start to integrate it into the bench. And this is a really simple strategy to give context. We're not activating the low trap. We're getting them to feel it so they know what we're actually looking for them to express in the movement. And if you've done this well, you'll probably only need to do it once or twice. And I'd recommend just having it as part of their warm-up sets. So you might unrack the bar, do some reps, and then go in, do some supinated band pull-aparts, add some weight on and go again, and just sort of blend it in as like an A1, A2 in your programming. The other really good thing with this sort of exercise is if you've got clients that, especially in like their rows, like seated rows and pull downs, and they just love driving this thing over the top, it's going to help them there as well. So you could simply just hit like a pull down seated in the position to do that, feel it, and then once they actually go through the movement, they've got the context. That's the whole key here. They've got the context to actually understand what you're asking them to express. It's a fantastic tool, and it's probably one of the easiest ways that you can start to learn how to manage this sort of sensory motor continuum for yourself and for your clients. And I'd highly recommend checking it out and trying it yourself, because you'll probably feel it straight away, how much different that tension is compared to just your standard cue of back and down in space. Because we're really wanting that posterior tilt of the scapula to hold position. So give this a try. Let me know how you go, and if you have any questions, you can drop them down straight below, or we can chat about them on the Wednesday calls. If you made it to the end, thank you very much. I would recommend checking out the Wormhole, my coach education portal, which is linked down below. There's a 2-day free trial. We have weekly live calls that you can ask questions with me, and we can discuss the content and the application of these ideas. There's like 15 to 20 hours already on there. We upload new content every week. Again, 2-day free trial. Please check it out. If you have any questions, you can also drop them down below.